So I did promise we'd be talking about something very specific this week. Unfortunately, I couldn't get around to that quite yet, or at least not do it the way I wanted to, because, unsurprisingly, it takes quite a while to set up an appointment with an actual attorney and interview them about legal advice, legal counseling, so that's gonna be on hold, at least the way I want to do it for now, but hey, luckily, like I said before, something is always happening in this industry. Something interesting is always going on. So it seems like it's time for another one of those episodes where we talk about something that has been happening recently and use it as a kicking off point into a bigger discussion about the very concept, the underlying ideas behind it, and what my thoughts on them are, and maybe add my voice to the conversation. So I hope you enjoy that, and here we go.
There's been a lot of talk about localization lately, and as someone who's enjoyed JRPGs since he was a kid, this is a subject I've got a pretty vested interest in. When it comes to video games, it seems like a lot gets lost in translation. Like some games are butchered beyond belief and changed into something wholly different simply because we apparently couldn't handle the original. And on a base level, that's not a prospect many people enjoy. Especially in an era where publishers are carving up their products for DLC and pre-order bonuses, nobody appreciates feeling like they were left out. So when a game gets drastic modifications moving from one country to another, the instinctual response from most people is not pretty. However, the more I get into game development myself, the more I realize that I don't have as big a problem with the localization process as some of my peers do. It's not because I think the sentiment is wrong. People are correct in demanding that their version of the game is as good as everyone else's. It's that I think the criteria by which we're setting that bar is a bit misguided. I want you to think about this from a creative standpoint. I make the kind of content I do because I want to invoke a particular response from people. I want to inspire a specific emotion in my audience and try to make others empathize with how I feel. That's what all art is designed to do. It's the only measurement by which you can say you enjoyed something creative more than another, simply because one elicited more of its intended response from you. Now I want you to look up an anime called Ghost Stories. This show is particularly infamous among anime fans because the original English dub by ADV Films is completely different than the original script. Many of the characters are far flung from what they were originally intended to be, to the point where the entire tone of the show is more comedic by nature. And I love it for that. These people are hilarious in the ADV version, which makes them infinitely more entertaining to watch for me. The dub keeps me paying attention so much more than the subtitles do, simply because I appreciate a little humor here and there. Especially with a show that already touches on such unbelievable themes like demons and the supernatural, I think knowing when to not take yourself too seriously is a powerful thing. And real talk, Amano Jaku is fantastic. You could tell Rob Mungle was having a ton of fun with this character, simply because every word that comes out of his mouth is delicious. But Fnu, you say, you don't get it. This completely defeats the point of the original. It undermines the Japanese principles and culture that made it what it was. True, but that's the thing, isn't it? I'm not Japanese. By nature of the environment I was raised in, I have very different standards of what I would find entertaining than a Japanese demographic typically would. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. Something that seems cliché, tired, or even downright insensitive to me might be perfectly normal overseas. But on the flip side, something I think is funny might come off as crass or even abrasive in other countries. It's simply a matter of perspective. Look, let's cut to the chase on this. I've seen the fan translation of Fire Emblem Fates. I've also now seen the official one done by Nintendo of America, and the more I look at them both, the more I start to question what all the hullabaloo was about. Take a look at these two scenes back to back. When you really analyze the lines being delivered here, you realize that both versions are saying the exact same thing. The difference is, one of them isn't putting me to sleep. The official translation is written in such a way that the same information is being presented in a vastly more engrossing and colorful manner. The word choice and sentence structure makes these lines have weight and meaning, rather than feel like they're just there for the sake of it. And because Fire Emblem Fates is a story-heavy game, it certainly would behoove them to make that story appealing. That's not to say I think the official translation got everything right. One of the scenes between Saizo and Baruka in the original version has them discussing the nature of their job as assassins. It's kind of a powerful moment because it helps drive home the weight that comes with taking another person's life, and considering this series has always been about war, it's especially strong. Now look at the American version. Wait. I mean, don't get me wrong, watching two ninjas end up in a conversational stalemate because neither is willing to speak first is hilarious, but that's not really what I came here to see. The appeal of the conversation and relationship mechanic is that you get to watch all these lovable personalities bounce off one another. You get to see how they build off each other and interact, and what that teaches you about the world in the process. And herein lies the problem. They didn't interact. They only reaffirmed what I already knew the instant I opened their stat pages for the first time. I get it. They're silent killers. This is not earth-shattering information to me. This bit of interpretation didn't work because I didn't learn anything from it. It clashed with the mechanics in a very disappointing way, and when you learn how much better the original version gelled with what I expect from scenes like this, it makes it that much harder to swallow. All of these examples I've listed are why I think part of being a good translator is also being a good writer. You not only have to understand what the original message was, but also how to deliver that message to a completely separate audience in a way that they would find just as appealing. It's more complicated than the language being different. It's that our standards for what makes us laugh, cry, and cheer can vary wildly from culture to culture. That can be a huge barrier to overcome, and especially in Days of Yonder, games were often laughably inadequate in this department. That was then, though. This is now. Back then, we had incidents like Resident Evil and Symphony of the Night. These days, we have games like Aegis of Earth and Disgaea blowing it out of the water and proving that this can be done well. All it takes is the right people with the right experience, and if we can refrain from firing those people, title by title, I think we can lift the stigma that game translators just don't know what they're doing. And if we remember that games are made to be entertaining, maybe in the future, we can stop blaming them for problems that aren't actually there.
Yeah, the situation with Allison Rapp is kind of unfortunate, isn't it? It's doubly sad because she was a marketing director and therefore not responsible for the translation of Fire Emblem Fates in any way, shape, or form. It's also unfortunate that we don't have a very clear-cut answer on this one. Like, we don't have as definitive a conclusion. Like, she's claiming that she was fired for one reason, and Nintendo is claiming it was for a completely different reason. And they're saying it's because of her having a second job and how that conflicts with company policies or something. But regardless of what their actual intentions were, what they have done right now by doing this is they have justified every single person in the world that was harassing her. Okay, they have basically said to all of those people, this loud, obnoxious subset of their fan base, that, yeah, it's perfectly okay for you to go trolling through someone's LinkedIn profile or Amazon wishlist to try and find incriminating evidence against them. You are perfectly fine going on every social platform in the world and calling them a pedophile and God knows what else, even if it's completely false, because the company responsible for employing these people that you are making a victim in the first place will justify all of that hatred by caving into your demands. You know, one of these days, I'm really gonna have to sit down and analyze where I stand on Nintendo. Like, I'm really going to have to figure out what my position is on this company, especially in light of a lot of the things that have been happening recently. And if how I'm feeling right now is anything to go by, that's a rant that is going to make me friends with nobody out there. But that's a bridge we'll cross to when we get to it. Until then, I hope you enjoyed what you saw here today, and please join me again next week for what will hopefully be the rant I had planned on doing today. So, until then, I am Whatthefnu. Later, everybody.